All right. So I'll be completely honest. I forgot that the conquest starts tomorrow. I was absolutely a week behind on my internal scheduling, so hopefully this comes out in time that people can make use of it. Okay. Um so briefest overview of all the sector feats. They're mostly rehashes of ones we've seen before. No real sticking point ones like that are very new or just like extremely specific. There is one very clear exception, and when we get there, we will get there. However, there are a couple that do require like the new marquee characters and the new Jedi Knight Cal. So that may play a role in how much space you have, like how much wiggle room you have to get your 630 key cards to get your red crate. Um, like I said, when we get there, I'll discuss it. But the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to go through each of the sectors and I'm going to go through the main feats. The mini boss and boss feats are typically very, formulaic. It's one of them is either hey, win with no Jedi Sith or unaligned Force users, win with no Galactic Legends, win with some specific faction, whatever. And then the second one is win with X character surviving. Um, One thing I will say about those, one of the specific characters that's required in Sector 5 is Jedi Knight Cal Kestis. I believe his event is over. I don't think it's a permanent event. So if you didn't get him the first time around, you are already missing out on those 5 key cards. As for the rest of the characters required, they're not the worst. I'd say probably the two that would make me, or I'd say three rather, that would make me the most concerned are you need Tarful, Saw, and Admiral Trench. If you're going for Jedi Knight Cal Kestis, you should have two of the three of those geared up anyhow. But if you don't, there really wasn't a reason for us to gear them up because they weren't required for anything beyond Conquest alone. So if you don't have them geared up, now might be the time just to give them something just so that they can survive the Conquest overprepared buffs and all that stuff. It might be able to save you just a few tickets and also your sanity, to be completely honest. Um, but yeah, that about covers the mini boss and boss feats. They're pretty standard nonetheless. Um, so way I'll do this, I've made pre-made squads, and I will tell you if a specific data disk is required. I believe looking at it, most of the data disks are the same from the last time. The only difference being that I know last sector or the last three conquests we had, they didn't say zealous ambition on the data disk available, but somehow it was there. I don't know if it will be there this time. I don't know if it was another typo, but I'm just going to run off the paperwork that they gave us for this conquest. So that assumes that there is no zealous ambition this time around. So let's start with Sector 1 here. So the first one is 50 kills of droids. Uh, this one, Grievous is a go to. He's been a go to since probably the first conquest we ever had this feat. He can pretty much go all the way up until he's got like 10 stamina just because he constantly takes turns from all his enemies dying. Or, sorry, all of his allies dying. So you shouldn't really have any trouble with this. The new thing is that because Leviathan is going to be releasing at the end of this conquest, I think it's like the middle of the last week of conquest. If you geared up Sortie, you may be able to make a second droid team just in case you want to use some like lesser useful characters. So you can preserve stamina on your Grievous team, just in case you want to, use him in a sectors later on. But then again, Sortie isn't really like A tier, in my opinion. Her Conquest Omicron is somewhat useful in the fact that it gives everybody that instant defeat immunity, but it's not the most impressive Omicron. I put it on just by mistake, I'll be honest, but I wouldn't go out of your way to put it on. So do with that what you will. Grievous will get you this no matter what. And this is Sector 1, which is very easy. Gain defense up 40 times. Chewie, Clone Wars Chewie, to be more specific. Straightforward. Slap him on, 4 random tunes, hit auto. Whether you win or lose, you will get 40 defense ups in one turn. So don't worry about that one. Win after or sorry, attempt to inflict ability block 60 times. I just have this team here. Lord Vader with his AoE after ultimate, Darth Vader on basic. I don't know if Thrawn's applies an ability block because of the way that it goes from speed up to ability block when the enemy finishes a turn. I don't know if the game is coded that way, but more or less, he's there really just to pass turns to Vader. Royal Guard just to tank some hits, and TIE Fighter Pilot for the AoE. You could use Imperial Troopers here. They got an AoE ability block, and this one shouldn't be too hard. There's a lot of characters that do this. So just find a couple of them, smack them together, and make something work. And winning 14 battles with no tanks. Okay, now I know this says no attackers. That's my mistake. So this is actually specifically for a global feat. One of them is to win, I believe it's 40 battles with a full squad of clones. And so, since there's a number of teams in this whole game that can play with no tanks, I just thought, why don't I just double dip? 40 battles is tedious, and if I can get sector progress and global progress, might as well. This, in my opinion, is typically one of the better teams to run. Um, they were supercharged when you had Zealous Ambition because you got Rex as support, Echo for whatever reason as support. Echo meaning the CT Echo, not the Bad Batch one. But Bad Batch and Tech Echoes were also supports. So Zealous Ambition really juiced them up, but even without it, they're pretty good. The workaround to it is to get a lot of the attack out of turn data disc. There's like Perseverance where they attack a double. There is Stacking Fervor where they stack on offense. Master's Blessing, they stack up Mastery. Every time they attack on a turn, they get stronger, which doesn't really make up for Zealous Ambition, but in the short term, since each battle is only 5 minutes, you may be able to make something out of it. So it is a way to double dip, but then again, no tanks, winning 14 battles. There are thousands of compositions that can work. CLS is a go-to one. You could do like Imperial Troopers without Shore Trooper or Shore Storm just to be safe. There's thousands of possibilities y'all have, and this one shouldn't be a problem. All right. So let's start with the win 14 battles with no attackers. I use the same basic composition, except now I switched out Arc Trooper for fives. You could put in Wrecker technically. However, just because you got Rex and Echo who are 501st, I'd figure it's better to just get the sacrifice in there just to work it out. Again, there's a lot of teams that you can win with no attackers. This is more or less just because you have a global feat for clone wins, so you might as well double dip. Save you that much energy later on. Defeating 60 enemies with Rebel Fighters. I know it's out of order, but just bear with me here. So, Rebel Fighters team with Mon Mothma is the go-to, I understand. So you got Mon Mothma, Kyle. If you have Jedi Master Luke, you probably have Lando, Wedge, and Biggs as well. That means they can make up one team. If you have Kara, throw her in there as well. However, the other side is that the Radis lineup actually is majority Rebel Fighters. Radis himself is not. So that may require a bit more, manual play just to make sure that he doesn't get the final kill. But Cassian, Jin, Bistan, and Scarif Pathfinder are all Rebel Fighters. So if you use the mass AoE, if you use, Jin's Trunkian Strike, Bistan's second special, all of those are fair game to get you those defeating enemies. So just do whatever you can with that. Win 300, or sorry, attempt to inflict 300 purge. This is one lineup that I've been using for a long time. I do not intend to gear up my Inquisitors for a while. There's much more imperative farms that we have going on right now. But the typical way this works is that you will swap out, once you feel like you have enough gear on her, you can swap out 9th Sister for 7th Sister, and you need the voluntary Vanguard for this to work. You don't necessarily need Frenzy here. It can give you the boost for sure, but it's not required if you have Voluntary Vanguard, because the main reason you need it is it'll mark Malik, and especially if you're going for Leviathan, Malik should be your healthiest at R9 at this point. He will pretty much put fear on the whole enemy team, so pick someone that hits light and multi-attack. So Geonosians are a good one, Mon Mothma's a good one. They'll spread fear around like crazy quick, and you get your turns up faster. And then as soon as that happens, you basically just spam your specials, so Fifth Brother's leadership will just keep inflicting purges. The reason I say Seventh Sister is a little better than Ninth Sister's AoE that does give purge to everybody also makes your taunt, and then that's a way that enemies can get around the voluntary vanguard. So Seventh Sister, not only does she not taunt, she gives you a little bit of healing, which might let you get off that one or two extra bursts or AoE or whatever you need. On top of that, she assists with every turn, which means that you get a chance to get one extra purge on every attack. So it could shorten the time down. I think for me last time, it shortened it down by almost one or two full battles. Um, if you have Grand Inquisitor, I imagine this is much easier. I'll be honest, I don't even know his kit, but from what I remember from this recent Galactic Challenge, I just remember seeing purges all over my CLS team. So I imagine it's much easier if you have him. I don't think anyone in our guild should have Reva yet, but I imagine it's even easier with her. Now, for Foresight 60 times, there is a option here with Padme. Now, main reason I'm using this weird lineup, one, it's one that I used in the last series of Conquest because you needed 3PO R2 wins, but it's also because I'd rather just get the Foresight and win the battle than not. And Padme takes up, Grandmaster Yoda, 3PO, R2, General Kenobi. These are all characters that I don't really turn to too often in Conquest. And with a Padme lead, victory is very much assured. This is Sector 2 at the end of the day. So you should be able to win fairly easily. And by win, I mean with 3 stars. That way you don't have to deal with going back later on when you're doing your second run through and picking up like 1 or 2 extra tickets that you missed. This just guarantees that you can get the foresights and get the win at the same time. And one more here for the no attackers on your team. It's a Jedi Master Luke with Cal Kestis and Bastila. Now, the main reason this is here is for another global feat, which was the same we had in the last series, which was 100 Cal kills. So the only change to that global feat is they added Cal, Ser, and now Jedi Knight Cal Kestis. So if you have Knight Cal, it should be easier. I'm just going to do what I did last time, where I basically use Master Luke's Jedi teachings or whatever that special is that costs people to assist. I'll use it on Cal constantly. Hermit Yoda will give Master's Blessing to Cal, and Bastila will buff Cal as well. All of that should mean Cal would hopefully hit harder than he should at 3 stars, 11 gear. So hopefully that gives me just, a little bit more power so I can get some kills out of him. I'd rather not. I'm very much expecting them to not have Night Sister Zombie as a boss this time around. I figured they realized they fucked up because we just farmed Night Sister Zombie for 50, 60 kills a game, and we were done with the global feat in like 3-4 battles. So I figured they're probably going to change up some of the mini bosses to not be revivable. And so this is the way I can double dip and hopefully speed up 2 feats at the same time. All right. I'm going to skip the first one for just one moment. I'm going to just go down for the other 3. Defeat 50 enemies with Geonosians. There's only 5 Geos. Slap them together, make it work. What I used to do for this one was I would swap out one of them for Watt. Typically, it was Poggle. I would throw on a Frenzy Tech, and I would find a team that... I would find a set of data discs that ramped up damage based on attacks out of turn or gave you more attacks out of turn. That way, you can just, get your kills within the first couple salvos and then let the timer run down. This is just to defeat X amount of enemies, so you don't need to win. You can just let the timer run out and then call it. I used to go for Mon Mothma teams, Ewoks with the Ewok Elder or something of the sort. Sorry, not Ewoks. Imperial Troopers, because they would at least have the extra spawn and stuff. It wasn't great because my Geos here are gear 12, and this is a Sector 3 feat, so there's a very good chance that they won't even make a dent. But with Frenzy, I feel like it may be possible, and especially if I get the right data disc combination. Win 14 battles with full Galactic Republics. Again, Clone Troopers are fully Galactic Republics, so there is some way you can double dip. That Padme team I showed you before, that's technically all Galactic Republic. With how many characters are honestly pretty good in the Galactic Republic. I feel like you should have more than enough to make things work. I would just say try to stick to clones if you can. That way you can double dip with the global feat and not do as much of those later on. Inflict stagger 60 times. Well, there's a couple of them for stagger. There's the Palps lineup with Mara Jade and Starkiller. Um, you got Mara Jade with the AoE stagger, so you can get 5, and then she'll just constantly get turns if you make it work right. And then you got a Malgus lineup. And the reason I skipped the Malgus team up top, and this one is for one particular reason. There is a global feat where you need to have Malgus win and survive 40 times. Now, Malgus is a good tune. I don't think anyone will dispute that. So you should have him geared up anyhow. Now, to what gear is to each his own. I personally went straight for Relic 7 because he was amazing. And now with the new Sith ships coming out, I'm actually not, not mad at my investment. But the main reason that this feat in Sector 3 is a pain in the ass is because Malgus is the only person, as far as I know, who can inflict it. So he has to get We Have Returned 60 times, which I believe is attached to his Dark Deception. No, it's attached to one of his abilities. Here we are, his leadership. So when doubt expires from an enemy, Sith Empire allies gain We Have Returned for 4 turns. Great, that's whatever. However, doubt can only be given if it's from his second special, I believe. There we go, inflicts doubt. So if I'm understanding it correctly, let's say you play against a team that has 6 troops. You get doubt spread on everybody. You can only manage to get this 6 times because the way this is worded, it says that you can't, or the way his leadership is worded at least, I don't think doubt can be reapplied a second time to an enemy and trigger the We Have Returned just because of how his leadership is worded. I'm trying to find the exact phrase here. Um, here we go. Whenever doubt expires on an enemy, they're inflicted with fear, and the first time it's dispelled from an enemy, 2 random enemies who didn't already have it are inflicted with doubt at the end of the turn. So basically, it's a one and done kind of deal. Now, that being said, we had the same kind of inclinations when they had the fracture feat a while ago. It was get 40 fractures, and everybody's like, oh shit, it's Thrawn. Thrawn only has so many fractures available. There's a good chance that we may not be able to get, the good amount of fractures in a run. But then turns out the mini boss is all you needed. It was a Malgus boss, ironically, and you just hit auto, and because of the way Malgus was juiced up, you could get at least 13, 14 fractures a game. So I will say this. The way you get We Have Returned is going to be tedious. You are going to have to basically get as many Dark Deceptions fired off. And the first time you'll get a good amount of We Have Returns. Every time after that, it's diminishing returns on you. However, we do not know the composition of the bosses, mini bosses, and also we don't know if they're putting in new tunes on each of the nodes. So there may be a cheese that I have not been able to account for yet. I can't think of one at the moment. I've been looking at previous Conquest teams to see if maybe one of them could work. I don't think they can. The only benefit I can see is if you go up against a team that has a summoned unit, then you get one extra character that can get a doubt, so one extra We Have Returned buff. But that is not going to speed up the progress of this feat that much. So this one is going to be more of a, on paper, it sounds like a bitch, but let's wait until this Conquest goes live, and there may be more that we have yet to see. As for this global, and WHR stands for We Have Returned, and stagger, again, the same as the We Have Returned team, essentially. The main reason I have this is because it hits a bunch more. You get the global feat if you win with Malgus alive. That's one check. Malgus here means you can get some We Have Returns. Another check. And then Bastila here can get you AoE staggers. And I believe hers is on a much faster cooldown than Mara Jade's, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 3-turn cooldown versus, I believe Mara's is 4. So it may give you just a little bit more breathing room. Yeah, hers is 4. So I'm personally going to be using the Sith Empire lineup a little bit more just because I can hit a lot more feats in one go versus the staggered one with this Star Killer lineup, which will just get me stagger. But, some people may not have this exact lineup to a level where it will be feasible. So here is an alternative option. And if that doesn't work, there are a number of characters that can do AoE staggers. You got Kira, you have, I believe, one of the Chewbacca. No, that's blind. They do blind. Um, there's a number of characters. I'm blanking on the names, but I'll bring them up in a second. Let me actually look it up just because I don't want to leave it alone. There should be like a number of AoE characters for for stagger. You got Colonel Stark, you have Zeb, you have Django with his double tap. As I mentioned, Kira, Sabine has an AoE as well. Sun Fac will have one. So there is a good number of options you have when it comes down to this. You know. Okay, so Sector 4 now. So first one, win 14 battles with a full squad of Inquisitors. I know that says 50 kills. It is just win 14 battles. Um, this one, you know, I'm going to probably have to skip. I highly doubt my Inquisitors are good enough. This is a Sector 4 feat, and this is the best I have to work with. There is a very solid chance I'm just going to have to take the L on this one, but we will see. Um, there is also attempt to inflict evasion down 40 times. So I have this team with Old Ben and Cal. Now, the way I'm planning on doing this is it's Obi-Wan's basic that applies evasion down. So what I'm going to try and do is have it that Obi-Wan will get called with every assist possible up until the enemy gets into the red, and then I'll get the kill with Cal. Because the kill with Obi-Wan won't even trigger an evasion down anyhow. So I might as well just get the Cal progress as well as however many evasion downs I can. If you don't have this specific team or even Master Luke, Chupio, which is a 3-pack, or Chewbacca and 3PO, he does an evasion on basic as well, I believe. And he assists when any rebel attacks. So just slap together any random rebel team you want, throw 3PO in there, and then just go to town on somebody. Hopefully there's a nest or like an enemy that doesn't die or respawns constantly so you can just farm it forever. I figured they've learned their lesson about that because they took out nests last circuit and they replaced it with Juhani. So I figured they're learning their lessons a lot more. But this is an option that you have as well. Attempt to inflict armor shred. So I have two teams here. First one is basically just my highest level armor shred characters, Sans, Admiral Thrawn, but I'll get there in a second. And really, this is just a pump on frenzy, get your 4 or 5, however many you can get in the game, and then just rinse and repeat. So a Skywalker, second special or first special, Moff Gideon's first special, Fennec Shand, she actually has an ability to get 2 armor shreds. I don't think it's possible with this lineup because I needed bounty hunter leadership, but her, I guess, first special, she only has 1 special. It will trigger armor shred if this deals damage at all. And then Thrawn is here more or less just to feed turns. Fennec is on a cooldown of 2, so I might just keep feeding turns to her, so she'll constantly get more. But, that's a decent way. You just slap together all the enemies or all the characters you have that can do armor shred and go to town. Now, the one that I prefer a little more, just because I've had a little more luck with it, is the Huck Cartel. And that's because the way that Scando works is if he has 5 stacks of his deep cover, then when he uses his cutter axe, it number one will always inflict armor shred, so you already get guaranteed 1. And there's a 50% chance that it cooldown refreshes, so you can use it again immediately. That being said, the ideal lineup typically is all Huck Cartel. So you will always start out with 5 stacks of deep cover. So right from the get-go, you can get 1, and then it's very much just like one of Greedo's basics. You just got to hope that you get a couple of them out of the way, and then you just go for it. I'm probably going to end up using a combination. I'll use like Skywalker and them in the beginning because these are characters I'm not going to use too often right in the beginning. I don't really use 501st Gas, I'll be honest. Even for like Sith Empire, I've just started switching to Galactic Legends because I have a good amount now. So I might use them to get the first couple, and then if I'm down to like less than 5, I'll just swap over to Hot Cartel and get it over with. And then 50 Imperial Trooper kills. This one shouldn't be difficult. Super Troopers are 100% the way to go. Iden doesn't really add much, in my opinion. She's really good in Grand Arena, but outside of that, she's kind of falls off. But just Super Troopers, make sure you don't go against a team that benefits from out of turn. So Ewoks are a no go. Um, and just find the factions that have summons. So Genosians are a good one. I would try and avoid Imperial Trooper mirror matches just because in Conquest, the way that their respawn works, they come with preloaded turn meter when they respawn. And so that can really just break your train. But it is a way you can get definitely more than 6 because there are 6 spawns and then typically they have 3 respawns on top of that. So you could definitely make it work. But this being Sector 4, there is a very good chance that it will not be in your favor. Alrighty, Sector 5. So, first one is to get 50 Phoenix character kills. So, all Phoenix are light side, which means that Master Luke is going to be your godsend here. Mine, I have Hera only because she is the only relic I have. Ezra and Kanan are there. I may gear them up just a tad so they can hit harder and then just slap them in and work with them. I figure they'll be Jedi, so they'll also get a little more help with the mastery buff that comes with that Jedi lessons. But right now, this is the basic lineup. Jedi Knight Luke just puts vulnerable, Hermit Yoda puts Master's Blessing, and then you just basically keep calling Hera until she kills them. That's about it. Um, win 20 battles without losing any units. There's not really a team for that. You guys should know. Just, this is Sector 5. Take it easy. You don't think that you're going to get by with just a bunch of Gear 12s. Pull out all the stops if you have to. You can't lose anybody this time, so maybe here a Grievous team ain't the best idea. Gain foresight 60 times. This one's weird, not because of the feat itself. Feat itself is stupid easy. It's the same exact team that we had in Sector 2. The reason it's weird is because typically I don't think we've had a double feat. We've never had the same feat in 2 different sectors. So I don't know if this one's a typo per se, and if maybe it's somewhere else. Or sorry, not somewhere else, but it's something else that maybe whoever data mined this just messed up. But for now, going off what we have, just use the same team. Again, this is a Padme team. If you have, what's it called? If you have Master Kenobi, you should have a fairly good, strong team going, anyways. This will only help you, and you got to just enter. And if you don't kill anybody or lose anybody, you also get win 20 battles without losing a teammate. So, double dip in there. And then attempting to inflict blinds. This one, I don't know why this Inquisitor one is here. Just realized that should not be there. This blind one, you can do just the CLS team with 3PO and just hope that you'll get, an AoE every now and then and just get your 60 that way. I'm really impatient. I normally save this one till the very end. What I'll do is I'll stack up on a frenzy or two, and then I'll just let all 4 of these guys just do their AoE hits. And mostly you go against Jedi teams because of Eighth Brothers AoE. If they're Jedi, they get blinded as well. So then, based on that, you should be getting 5, 10, 11, 12. And then I believe Missions has a pretty fast cooldown. So it should be able to get up every 2 turns. So it can help get you the 60 pretty fast. Again, 3PO Chewie, his is on a 2-turn cooldown. I just realized that it was 3-turn for whatever reason. So his will come fast too. But with CLS teams, they're really souped up. So there's a chance that you'll kill the enemy before you actually get to apply the blind, which is why I don't prefer them, because I'd rather just keep all the enemies alive and lose and get multiple blinds at once than kill half the team and get half the amount that I should. And lastly, global feats. So we talked about a couple of them already. So I'm going to just keep this short and sweet. So there has been a change to the kill 500 enemies. First change is that it's 250 now. So there's less enemies. The bad part is that now it is specifically on the Golden Path challenge. So if you're like me, you go on the golden path anyhow, so it shouldn't really be too much of a hindrance. Now you're actually getting it faster, if anything. However, if you aren't the person that follows that golden path all the time, it may be worth it just to get a couple of enemies on that node, just so you can farm this feat up. Just find like if you get a stupid easy Jedi team in Sector 1, great. Just leave them, then go off Golden Path the rest of the game if you want to, but you do have to take the Golden Path in order to get this feat done. And it is worth 15, so do keep that in mind. That's quite a bit. The next two I mentioned, um, win 40 battles with Malgus surviving, win 40 battles with Clone Troopers. I have already, through all the sectors, shown you a couple Sith Empire lineups. That's really the only thing Malgus will be useful um, in terms of like, useful for getting global feats as well as that sector specific feat. And with Clone Troopers, there's a couple win with Galactic Republics. There's a couple win with no attackers, no tanks, and you can mix and match these guys because they got a good spread of all the kinds of class types here. So you can double dip for 40 Clone Trooper wins as well as no attackers, no tanks, etc. There's a good amount of stuff you can mix and match. I'm gonna skip this impossible one, my word impossible, for 1 second. Defeat 100 enemies with Cal, Sayer, or Jedi Knight Cal Kestis. I've gone over that a little bit. It's this essential lineup. Jedi Knight Luke puts vulnerable so that everybody dies fast with crits. Hermit Yoda will buff up Cal. Theoretically, now I could swap out Watt for Bastila Lightside because I'm going to get her to Relic 7 for Leviathan, and therefore she can pass all the buffs over to Cal and he can hit even harder. Main reason I keep Watt, though, is just because Master Luke needs to taunt as long as possible. Cal will pretty much get one-tapped, even though I have my gear 11. But if you have Jedi Knight Cal Kestis, I imagine this gets even easier because, you can have the entire Sayer lineup and they thrive off of being low speed. I don't know how they'll function in Conquest. I know that I've came across them once or twice in Grand Arena and they were pretty much getting bitch slapped left and right. But maybe Jedi Knight Cal Kestis really does elevate them to some new level I hadn't thought of. We don't know. And then this is one feat that gives you a data card, and the next one is just complete battles with said data cards. So that one's no brainer. The last one is win 20 battles with a full squad of Wookiees. Now, this one, again, on paper, it sounds like it's a bitch and a half. Now, here's the thing. Tarful has a pretty good leadership for Wookiees. Let me qualify that. For Wookiees. This is sometime I would say that you could probably benefit from getting him to Gear 7. At least so that you can unlock his leadership, give him some protection, maybe get his unique geared up a little bit, so that you get some of these buffs down here. Because if you have SLKR or Rey, or both, which I think most people should, I am actually one of the few that doesn't because I didn't bother going for them, you'll have Vet Smuggler Chewbacca up. Now, this really doesn't affect him too much. He'll be more or less affected by this ability, which gives you Dispel, more crit damage, etc. However, look at the rest of these. Whenever Wookiee ally gains health up, everybody gets 50% health and protection back. That's a Clone Wars Chewie reference. If you have geared up Clone Wars Chewie, I salute you immensely. I swear to God. I obviously don't. So this again is useless, but it's a call out to him. When a Wookiee ally gains retribution, all Wookiee allies can inflict damage over time for 2 turns when they use a basic. Zalbar, he gives himself retribution, and so when Wookiee allies attack back, they'll give damage over time. 3PO and Chewie and Chewbacca are 2 that most people should have relicked. When Chewbacca attacks, 3PO will assist, meaning that you can maybe work with damage over times, thermal exhaust, amplified agonies, and go to Sector 1, and this may be a way that you can dwindle through some of the weaker enemies you find. Whenever an enemy attacks at a turn, you gain speed. Now, on my team, I have 2 Chewbacca and 3PO that I have souped up. They are on my CLS team, and I've given them a lot of attention for mods. They have pretty decent mods, in my opinion. My Chrysanthemum isn't the greatest on speed, but that's more or less because he's supposed to be the tank on my Hutt cartel. However, he is a Wookiee, so if he does attack back, then that damage over time clicks in again, and I may be able to get away with some amplified agonies and whatnot. This is all to say I feel like this one sounds bad on paper, but very much like the Tuscans, where you found out, oh, okay, if I just play against a turn meter heavy team, I'll win. I feel like there is going to be a single team that makes this feat a lot easier than it should be. We just have to find it. That is the one thing that is going to be difficult. And the problem is, we don't know the enemy teams that are available. We don't know the mini bosses, the bosses, whatever it is. So we are really flying blind here. And on paper, this sounds like a shit show, but I feel like there is going to be some cheese that will help us with this. And if not, go to Bit Dynasty. That guy knows goddamn everything. Um, and the reward for winning this is you get deployable cooling systems, which is that I believe it's like if you get a buff, you get a percentage chance to cool down or something like that. And just you got to win some battles with it, just like every other one. Now, the one I skipped, it's win 20 battles with Captain Rex, meaning the new one that got released, Chopper, Ezra, Hera, and Kanan. Now, I don't know about y'all, but if you've got the not Leviathan, if you've got Radis, Hera should be geared up for that. Great. However, Chopper, Ezra, and Kanan should not. That sucks. Even worse, Captain Rex isn't even farmable yet. I believe he's not even in shipments yet. He's just got his data pack on the store. Meaning, even if you soup him out, you'll have him at 3 stars, gear 11. He can't even use 6E mods. He is going to be squishy as all hell. And the worst part is, all of these characters have to survive the battle. Even in Sector 1, I feel like this is going to be a shit show and a half. So if I were you, I would say skip this feat. It is not worth the sanity that you're going to lose doing it. Okay. Now, all in all, let's do some quick math here because this one is going to be a little bit of a challenge. There are 2 feats that I imagine a majority of us will not be able to do. Not like, oh, it's hard to. No, you will not get it at all. That being the Captain Rex and Phoenix squad surviving, and winning a battle with Cal Kestis Jedi Knight surviving. Those 2 alone constitute 20 tickets. If this is like every other conquest we've had, you only have a margin of 34 tickets. If you lose beyond 34, you are not getting the red crate. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe the prize for this one is Talon Malicos, which personally, I'm not too interested in him. I don't even care about the Cal team yet. So I may not go for the red crate. If he is something you are looking forward to, keep these numbers in mind. You have 14 tickets of wiggle room. What that means is you cannot miss a single feat in Sector 5 of the main feats, like the 15 credit feats. The boss and mini boss, we'll let you deal with those as you will. In sectors 1 to 4, or in sectors 3 and 4, you can only miss one of the main feats. And I imagine that most of us are going to be missing the win 14 battles with Inquisitors, because most of us don't have souped up Inquisitors. What this means is that your wiggle room is probably and more likely 4 tickets. You got 15 of the Captain Rex you can't get, 5 from the Jedi Knight Cal surviving, and 10 from the winning 14 battles with Inquisitors units. That is 30 tickets. You only have a wiggle room of 4, which means you have to get every single main feat. You can miss 1 boss feat. And you have to 3-star every battle you have. That being said, if you are on the fence about, should I go for Talon? Should I go for this? I will say this. Leviathan is releasing the second half of Conquest. I believe it's the 19th, which is the Wednesday on the second week. Because of all these events kind of coming at once, I personally am going to be focusing more towards Leviathan. I feel like that will be a much better way to secure my crystal income via GAC and fleet shards. I don't want Talon anyhow because I don't even have my Cal team built up, which means that he will be sitting gathering dust. Very much like my Ben Solo is right now. Ben Solo is just sitting in a room gathering dust because I don't have anything to do with him yet. And because of all that, I am not too worried about this conquest. But if you are one of the people who are, keep those numbers in mind. 4 tickets of wiggle room, assuming you don't have Inquisitors, you don't have Jedi Knight Cal, and you don't have Captain Rex, the new Captain Rex done. That means 4 tickets is all you're allowed to lose. 3-star every battle, get every single main feat done, 1 boss feat you're allowed to miss. And that's the only thing that you can do. Now, I don't want that to sound ominous, even though I know it very much does. But that is to say that it's kind of a blessing in disguise. Conquest really has been kind of gone through the mud and turned into a gigantic shit show. So, if I were you, I would say focus on the fleet, focus on Leviathan, focus on getting the best chance of securing your crystals versus one character that may or may not turn the tides. Conquest units in general, they've been either some of the greater tunes that they then nerf, or they've been mid tier tunes that don't really add much to the whole effect of the game. I believe Talon is the latter, which is why I am going to be personally not going for red crates. I will just be going for the second to last, or maybe even third to last, depending on my crystal income. All in all, I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned enough that maybe you can find out with your roster which one of these can work for you. But I hope that at the end of the day, you get a little more perspective on what you should prioritize when the next 2 weeks are over. That's all for today. I have work tonight at midnight, and I am ready to get a little bit of napping in before I got to go. But until, I guess, the next territory battle, territory wars, whatever I may see you guys on, I'll see you there, Wampas. Peace.